Lily
have to go.
Monroe woke up
Now.
with her face
Why
pressed
should I
into dry
trust you?
soil.
Because I'm all
The sun
you
was
got.
already burning her skin like a
Can't.
brand on a
You think this
runaway
changes
horse.
anything? I
Her
won't be
wrists were
silenced
tied
by
so
your
tight
stares.
behind her back
This
that
town
her
will hear
fingers
the
had turned
truth.
cold. Someone had left her trussed to the split rail fence on the edge of Dodge City. Her cheek was swollen from a slap she did not see coming. Her lip had cracked during the struggle. Blood dried on her chin in a thin line. The dirt around her feet was stained where she had tried to stand, but she could not. Her legs had given out hours ago. Every inhale scraped against her ribs like sandpaper. A torn white blouse clung to her skin. It had once been her last good shirt. Now it was ripped open at the shoulder. Her shorts were smeared with dust and bruises. Flies landed on her arms. She could not swat them away. Behind her she could still hear the echoes of last night. The shouting, the lies. The women calling her names she had never deserved. The men saying she had brought shame to the town. All because she was too beautiful for their comfort. Too striking for their pride. Too young and too noticed in a place that hated anything that made noise without trying. Lily had never asked for attention. She only wanted a quiet life. But jealousy runs deep in the plains. Sometimes it grows sharper than a knife. One woman had screamed first. Another joined in. Then the men dragged Lily outside. Someone said she had flirted with a married man. Someone else said she had smiled too long at the wrong person. No one cared that none of it was true. Truth had never mattered in Dodge City. Only punishment, only humiliation. They tied her to the fence at sundown. Left her as if she were an outlaw. Left her for the night. Left her for the heat. Left her for the shame to finish what they started. She tried to pray. She tried to tell herself that morning would bring mercy. She had never felt so alone. She had never felt so unwanted. Her father had died years ago. Her mother had remarried and no longer had room for a daughter who drew trouble. Now she belonged to no one, not even to herself. She lifted her head just enough to see the empty road. Heat shimmered over the dry grass. Nothing moved. Not a horse, not a soul. Her voice cracked when she whispered for help. The wind carried it away as if it had never been spoken. She leaned her weight against the fence and closed her eyes. If no one came soon, she knew what would happen. Heat can take a person as surely as a gun, and she was fading fast. Then something stirred at the edge of the field. A shadow moved slow and steady. A horse snorted. A man approached. But was he salvation or another cruel hand from Dodge City? The shadow kept coming closer. Lily tried to lift her head again. She blinked hard. The figure became clearer. It was a man on horseback, and his hat was wide and dusty. Wide. He sat tall in the saddle like someone who'd been riding since the day he learned to walk. The horse was calm but alert. For a moment she thought she was imagining all of it. Heat can trick a person in cruel ways, but then the man slowed down near the fence. He looked at her with eyes that did not turn away, eyes that did not pretend she was not there. He climbed off the horse. His boots hit the ground with a heavy thud that seemed to shake the dust. He walked toward her, slow and steady. Not scared, not unsure, just steady. Lily tried to speak. Her voice cracked like dry wood. She could not get a single word out. The man knelt in front of her. Up close she saw the lines on his face, deep lines, hard-earned lines. A man who had lived through storms and losses and days without enough sleep. He looked about 50, maybe a little older. His name was Caleb Hart. But she did not know that yet. He studied the knots around her wrist. Then he looked her in the eyes. There was no judgment in him, no disgust, just a quiet kind of concern. The kind of look a person gives when they see something that never should have happened. He spoke in a calm, low voice, not loud, just calm. Who did this to you? The question hit her harder than the sun. No one had asked her that. No one had cared enough. She tried to answer, but only a faint breath came out. Caleb nodded gently as if he understood more than she said. He reached for the rope around her arms. Lily flinched out of pure reflex. She had been hurt too many times to trust a hand so easily. Caleb stopped right away. He did not grab her. He did not force her. He waited. That alone told Lily something important. This man was not like the others. After a moment she gave the smallest nod she could manage. Caleb cut the rope with a small knife from his belt. Her arms fell forward and she gasped at the sudden rush of blood back into her hands. He caught her before she collapsed, not tightly, just enough to keep her from falling into the dirt again. Lily had no strength left to fight. She let him help her stand. Her legs trembled like a newborn foal. Caleb guided her to his horse. His touch was steady, respectful, almost gentle. He lifted her into the saddle with surprising care for a man his size. Lily leaned forward and held on. She still did not know if she could trust him, but she knew she had no chance at all if she stayed here. Caleb looked back toward the town, then up at Lily. There was something in his eyes now, something heavier than concern, something closer to anger. Not at her, at what had been done to her. He placed a hand on the reins. Then he asked softly, "Do you want to leave this place with me today?" And that was the moment Lily realized her next breath could change everything. But would she choose to take it? Lily held on to the saddle horn as Caleb led the horse away from the fence. Her arms shook with every slow step the horse took. Caleb walked beside the horse. He kept glancing up at her as if making sure she was still with him. The road toward his ranch stretched long and quiet. Dry grass whispered under the wind. A hawk circled high above them. Lily tried to breathe steady. Her body ached in too many places to count. But she felt something new growing inside her, a small thin thread of safety, almost like hope. It took nearly an hour to reach the Hart Ranch. The house sat close to a cluster of cottonwoods. A small barn stood beside it, simple, honest. Caleb helped her down from the saddle. Her legs wobbled and she leaned into him for a moment. Not out of trust, but because she had no strength left. He did not comment. He just guided her toward the porch. Inside the house it was cooler. The walls smelled faintly of cedar and old coffee. A quilt hung over the back of a chair. A framed photo of a woman sat on a small table. Caleb paused when he noticed Lily looking at it. "My wife," he said quietly. "She passed some years ago." Lily nodded. She understood that kind of silence. Caleb brought a bowl of water and a clean cloth. He set them on the table and stepped back. "You can wash up if you want. I will be right outside if you need me." He walked out to give her privacy. Lily dipped the cloth into the cool water. She wiped dust from her face and arms. Bruises, dried blood, eyes tired and too old for 19. But she was still here. Still breathing. Still Lily. After a while, she stepped outside. Caleb was sitting on the porch steps. He looked at her with that same steady calm. "You will stay here until you are strong again. No one will touch you. No one will shame you. Not on my land." For the first time since her father died, Lily felt her chest loosen. Not much, but enough to breathe without fear pressing down on the breath. She sat beside him and let the warm evening light settle on her skin. The ranch was quiet except for the soft rustle of grass. That night, Lily woke for water and saw Caleb sitting on the porch, hat off, shoulders heavy, staring into the dark. And for the first time, she wondered if this place could be the beginning of a different life. But danger has long legs in the West, and Dodge City did not forget a girl they had thrown away so easily. Before we head into the next part of the story, feel free to tap the subscribe button if you enjoy these old frontier tales. And while you are here, pour yourself a cup of tea, then tell me what time it is, where you are, and where you are listening from. Lily had been on the ranch for 5 days when the peace finally cracked. The morning started quiet, too quiet for a place that usually woke up with snorting horses and the clatter of buckets. Caleb felt it first, a strange stillness in the cottonwoods. He stepped out onto the porch with his coffee cup and scanned the road. Lily was inside sweeping the floor. She hummed to herself in a soft, shaky way, trying to pretend she was getting stronger faster than she really was. But trouble in the West has long arms. Around noon, a thin trail of dust rose on the horizon. Caleb set his cup down slow. He walked toward the gate. He knew the look of men coming with purpose. Riders do not bunch together like that unless they want something ugly. Lily peeked out the window. Her heart stopped. She recognized two of the men right away. One was the preacher who had shouted the loudest the night she was dragged out of Dodge City. The other was the saloon owner who had told everyone she smiled too much at married men. Now they were riding straight toward the ranch with 3 more men behind them. Caleb stepped forward as the riders pulled up. Their horses stomped and snorted in the dust. The preacher lifted his chin like he owned the land under his boots. Caleb rested his hand on the handle of his old revolver, not pulling it out, just letting them see he had not forgotten how to use it. "We came for the girl," he said. Lily felt her knees weaken. She tried to stay hidden behind the curtain, but her breath shook too loud. Caleb did not move. He folded his hands in front of him. His voice was calm, but there was steel under every word. "She is not yours. She is under my protection," the preacher scoffed. "Protection does not apply when a woman spreads shame in our town. She must come back with us." Caleb took one step closer. His shadow stretched long across the dust. "She's not going anywhere." One of the men spat in the dirt. "Since when does a man your age keep a girl like that in his house?" The insult snapped something in Caleb.
"What about you?"
Not loud,
"I'll be fine.
not
Just
wild,
go."
just final. "I will say this," once he told them. "Turn around and ride home. There will be no second warning." Lily watched through the window. Her hand shook on the edge of the curtain. She had never seen anyone stand for her, not even her own family. The preacher raised his voice in anger. "If you hide her, you stand against Dodge City. Do you understand that, old man?" Caleb leaned in just enough for them to see he was done being polite. "I lost my wife because no one dared stand up when she needed it. I will not repeat that mistake. Not today. Not ever." One of the younger men shifted in the saddle like he was thinking about grabbing his gun, but the look in Caleb's eyes stopped him cold. The riders hesitated. The lines on their faces shifted. They saw the fire in him. The kind of fire a man uses only once in his life. They backed their horses up slow, still watching Caleb, because every one of them knew he meant every word he said. Lily sank into the chair behind her. Her heart pounded like a drum. Caleb had faced 5 men without blinking. For her, a girl the whole town had thrown away. But as their dust settled, a cold thought crept into her mind. If those men had come once, they could return with more. And next time they would not leave so easily. So what happens when Dodge City decides not to back down anymore? For the rest of that hot afternoon, the ranch stayed quiet. Lily sat on the porch steps with her hands folded, trying to steady her breath. Caleb stood nearby with his arms crossed, watching the road like a man guarding a treasure he had almost lost once before. When the sun began to fall behind the cottonwoods, he finally turned to her. His voice was soft in a way she had not heard before. "You are safe here, but you must also decide what kind of life you want from this moment on." Lily looked at the open land around them, grass moving like waves, horses grazing without fear. A place far away from the cruelty she had known. For the first time in her life, she felt she could breathe without waiting for someone to shame her for it. She spoke slowly. "I want a life where I am not treated like a burden. I want to stay somewhere I matter." Caleb nodded. "You matter here, and you matter to more than you know." The first week, Lily barely walked more than a few steps. Caleb brought her broth and kept the room cool for her. By the second week, she could sit outside with a blanket around her shoulders. By the third week, she moved steady enough to start helping with small chores. Over the next weeks, Lily helped mend fences. She learned how to feed calves. She carried water from the well with steadier hands each day. Caleb worked beside her through every sunrise and every long, quiet dusk. They did not speak much, but the silence between them grew warm instead of heavy. Lily found herself laughing sometimes, a small laugh at first, then a real one that surprised even her. Caleb would glance over with a slight smile, as if he enjoyed hearing a sound he thought she had forgotten how to make. People in Dodge City kept talking. There were rumors and stories and warnings whispered in church pews, but none of that reached the ranch any longer. Some places are built strong enough to keep darkness out, and some people become stronger when they finally stop running. One evening, Lily stepped outside and looked at the sky turning gold. She thought about the fence where she had been left to burn, and she thought about the man who had knelt beside her and asked if she wanted to live. In that moment, she understood something powerful. Her past was a chapter, not a prophecy. A chapter she survived because someone finally chose kindness over comfort. Not a verdict. Just a beginning waiting to be written. She turned to Caleb. Do you think the world gives people second chances? He looked at her with steady eyes. Only if they are brave enough to walk toward them. Sometimes a single act of kindness can rebuild an entire life. Sometimes the person the world tries to break becomes the one who rises tallest. And sometimes a weary rancher sees value in someone long before she sees it in herself. Before we close this chapter, I want to ask you something. If you had seen Lily tied to that fence on that burning summer day, would you have stepped into? And what does courage look like in your own life today? If this story touched your heart even a little, go ahead and tap the like button. And if you enjoy these old frontier tales, feel free to subscribe so you never miss the next one. Now pour yourself a warm drink and tell me where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now.